Hey everyone, it's the Grumpy Meeple, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking about 3D printing and how insane it has gotten in recent times. So let's get to it. Okay, so I mentioned in a previous video that I recently started diving into resin 3D printing a little bit. And by diving into it, I mean, I have a friend who has a lot of experience with 3D printing resin, and he has agreed to 3D print as many figures as I want, basically, as long as I provide the resin and the files, the STL files for them. I don't have my own 3D printer. I actually just bought one, but I'm giving it to him to double his output on these, at least for the moment. And I'm 3D printing this stuff primarily for stuff like Hero Quest and Warhammer Quest, and possibly Warcry as well, Age of Sigmar Warcry. And then if the Warhammer Fantasy ever comes back, this stuff would probably be ready to go for that as well. So I've got a plan. I've got my production line running, and I just wanted to show you like what is possible at this point with resin 3D printing on a very basic, inexpensive printer. These figures were printed on an Elegoo Mars 1, like the first Elegoo Mars. So this is not a $2,000 printer. And I'm not using, $90 bottles of resin or anything to try and kind of sneak around it. This is the most ubiquitous, cheapest, one of the cheapest 3D resin printers on the market, printed with your basic, standard resin. And the results are just mind-boggling, at least to me. So let's start off by taking a look at the figures, and then we'll kind of talk about the logistics of this and the cost and whatnot, and why maybe it would make sense for you. So I've got, 10 figures printed up here from a line of miniature models called Avatars of War, and I will put a link to their Patreon and their My Mini Factory page in the description here. But so basically, Avatars of War is creating awesome 3D fantasy, kind of classic fantasy characters for the most part. So the kind of stuff that you would see in Warhammer Quest, just like light years beyond what you would have actually gotten in the box for Warhammer Quest, because it's been 30 years and technology is advanced. So first off, we're looking at this goblin with a mace. So I'm using these guys. I'm going to probably end up using these guys as Goblin Fanatics, even though I actually already have the Goblin Fanatic model from Games Workshop. I bought this a number of years ago. It's really cool. It's a really cool model, but these guys are even cooler. So, and if we compare it to a GW model, you can see that the scale is pretty comparable. They're just bigger goblins, basically. And the detail is significantly better, I think. I mean, if you look at the links in the chain, if you're looking at his back and his chainmail, it's just incredible, the quality of these prints. And the big difference is that, when I bought this, it came in a pack of 3, I want to say, and I want to say I spent like $40 on it or something insane, because I just saw these. I thought they were the coolest goddamn model I'd ever seen in my life, and so I had to have them. Boy, I wish I hadn't done that though, because this was like 2 cents. So when you print something on one of these printers, it will tell you the cost of the resin that you're printing. So I had to buy the files, because my buddy wasn't backing this particular Patreon. He's got like 10 other ones that he's backing. and he's got, you know, hundreds and hundreds of files from those, but I wanted these specifically. And so the file I got on a Christmas sale, I want to say it was $2.50. And so you're looking at $2.50 plus a couple cents worth of resin to print this guy out. And obviously now that I have the file, I can print hundreds of these, and I can configure them in different ways, and their arms and legs and stuff, and just field a whole battalion of them if I want to. So that's the first one. It's our Goblin Fanatic, and it is just gorgeous. I really hope it's coming through in the video. Next up, let's look at an undead. This is basically a White King. So, I mean, look at the detail on his sword, on his shield, in his face, his pants. Like, the detail is just astounding. And again, a couple dollars for a file set and a couple cents worth of resin. Here we've got another Gobbo Fanatic. I think these are called boss goblins in the box, and I may well end up using them for that too, but they're kind of similar to the Fanatics. So I like this guy with the dueling maces, ball on chains. Here we've got a Beastman. Beastmen are these are freaking hard to find on eBay for something like Warhammer Quest. And they're also really shitty miniatures from back in the day. They're comparatively tiny. At least the ones that I've seen and the ones that I've bought are tiny compared to this, and nowhere near as beastly looking and badass looking. And so this is one of the ones that I'm most excited about, because I'm going to be able to print a whole bunch of these guys out. And again, the whole reason that I'm doing that is because I recently printed these custom cards for Warhammer Quest. And so the base set of Warhammer Quest and the expansions and whatnot, they come with one card for each model. And then if you're a higher level, if you're level 2, you have to look on a table to see what their statistics are in the roleplay book, which is a huge pain in the ass. And so somebody whipped up a set of cards that increases through levels. You can see these are the level 1 cards. And there are tons of monsters in here that you need additional miniatures for. Dark Elves, Nagaroth Blackguards, Ghouls. These are not in the core set. And then here's the Beastmen. So look at these shitty fucking Beastmen minis compared to this absolute monster. Like, this guy looks like a 40k Beastman. I'm actually reading one of the Siege of Terra books right now, and there's a Beastman attack on Terra, and he looks exactly like what they're describing in the book. This giant bestial thing that looks like it could jump like 30 feet off of its huge hind legs and whatnot. So you've got all these extra monster types, hobgoblins, Goblin Shaman. Go on eBay and try to buy yourself a Goblin Shaman. It's going to look like that, which is like a piece of shit, and it's going to cost you $30. I printed this guy. I'm not sure if he's an orc or a Goblin Shaman. I imagine that he's probably an orc shaman, but either way, look at the fucking staff on this guy. Like, unbelievable. Nothing coming. There is no downgrading quality between this and modern day Age of Sigmar models, as far as I can tell. Like, they are just as cool. Goblin Netters, I can't wait to get these guys. It's another really cool one. We've got the giant spiders, giant rats. So the idea is that there's a ton of monsters that you can add to Warhammer Quest quite easily if you print these cards and you print the models, because you're not having to hunt around in the book to field them, and you're not having to hunt around eBay to purchase them. And so that's what I'm doing here. So we've got the Beastman. I think I talked about him just a moment ago. Incredible, like the detail on his horns. It's really cool shield, which is very chaosy, despite them not having the license or whatever. The bases I did myself. I just put some crackle shit on there, more than earth, and just let it dry, and it just naturally cracks up like that, which is really cool. Unbelievable. Here we've got a skeleton or a skeleton lord, you know, a higher level skeleton, potentially like a white lord or something like that, with the dual axes, and just like amazing. Pull out, you know, I wish I had it on hand, like the current version of Hero Quest, and compare their skeleton models to this fucking monster. It's not in any way comparable. Here we've got a Chaos Warrior. I think I'm actually going to use this one as my Chaos Warrior for my party, because in Warhammer Quest 95, there's a playable character class that is a Chaos Warrior. But you can see, like, stunning detail down deep in the cracks there, the skulls on his freaking cuirass or whatever, his axe with the counterweight hanging off of it, you know. There are trade-offs with this resin stuff, as I understand it. I'm handling it so delicately that this has not come up yet, but I know that it's delicate compared to, you know, like GW plastic, where it's just like, there are ways of getting around that. You can just buy better resin, basically. That's one of the things that I did. We're basically just using my buddy's bottle that he currently has, and then I sent him 2 bottles of the flexible, much more durable resin, which is supposed to be a big step up. Here's, I think that this guy is like a bloodletter, basically. So a chaos demon. Amazing. Look at that sword, like, so awesome. Here's another guy, like, this guy blows my fucking mind. Look at this detail on his fur lining, like, even from the front. And then when you come around, like, holy shit. This was like fucking 10 cents. Unbelievable. Here's another Gobbo. I love my Gobbos. Sword and shield and a big old spiked helm. You know, it's all very, like, this is virtually identical to, you know, the motif that you would get in Games Workshop. This is a goblin from Warhammer Quest that I'm working on, and you can see their shields have these kind of raised insignias on them, and this looks just like it looks like it came in the box, except that it's way too good of a miniature to possibly come in the box. Look at that cloak. And then finally we've got our orc shaman with the craziest staff I think I've ever seen on a miniature. And so they are weak in terms of durability, so you can't just throw these into a box. I'm going through and magnetizing all the bases. Here you can see I'm using these slotted bases. I'm trying to fill them with, like, I'm literally like breaking off pieces of toothpicks. It didn't work very well on this guy, but I'll cover that up. So what I'm doing is I'm magnetizing the bases so that I can throw them into a storage solution just like this, which is currently storing some of my other completed Warhammer Quest stuff. And this way they won't bump into each other. I'm still experimenting with what size I need in terms of magnet, but there you go. There's a Chaos Warrior from Games Workshop, not from Warhammer Quest, but this was a similar at the time kind of basic Chaos Warrior, and then here's one from this line. And he's a little bit bigger, but honestly, he's not even that much bigger, really. It's just his horns are huge, and he fits right in with them. Again, the Gobbos are a little bigger than their counterparts, but there are all sorts of goblins that you face off against in Warhammer Quest in those character decks, so that's really not going to be a problem. You got your skeletons, and Beastman, and your demon, and your orc show them. So you put them into a container like this. This will hold quite a few miniatures. This probably end up holding 50, 60 miniatures. And, you know, it's not perfect. I think that the magnets that I have are too small at the moment to really make some of these stick, but they will stick. You know, they won't go flying around. This thing is particularly heavy, so I need a big magnet for that. And so this is how you store them. Instead of, you could do the same thing just by sticking them in the box, but then they're bumping all over the place and you're fucking trying to pull them out. It's a nightmare. And once they're painted, like this same friend painted these for me. This is the boss goblin, or the boss orc from Lair of the Orc Lord, the expansion. And you can see he did just an incredible job of painting. It's actually super demoralizing to me because it's just like, why do I even bother? But I don't want to just throw that into a box, you know. I need to protect that. And this is the method that I've come up with. So that's a look at some 3D printing of content from Avatars of War, which you can find on Patreon, or you can just buy the files directly on myminifactory.com. If you back the Patreon, the way it works is you get like a selection of miniatures every month. So right now they're putting out this insane shit, like a orc chariot that's got to be like this big, a goblin git launcher, which is basically like a huge troll holding a slingshot that a couple of orcs are pulling back and they're firing goblins out of it at the enemy. And they're putting out a bunch of savage orcs as well, because they'll do multi-part sets as well. Some of these were individual miniatures, like sculpts, specialty sculpts that I bought, so you just get the one miniature. But a lot of their sets are actually multi-part, meaning that you print them just like they're on a sprue and then you take them apart. And the cool thing about that is you can mix and match and assemble them however you want. And so there's one of those coming in December too that I'm super excited about. And yeah, so just a few thoughts about resin printing, 3D printing, Warhammer Quest, other games, you know, could use this stuff for Warhammer Underworlds, depending on what it is. Definitely, potentially for Silver Tower. If there's ever any fan expansions, which I know that Peter Cooper, the guy who is working on who recently completed the amazing Cursed City expansions and complete like rewrite of the rulebook, basically. He's also working on a Silver Tower expansion, and so who knows, if he has a bunch of goblins in that, then boom, I'm like set, and I don't have to go hunting miniatures. So pretty awesome stuff. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope you have a happy holiday, and I will see you in the new year.